Welcome, everyone, to another session, another episode of Journeys of Faith. And today, we welcome as our guest Marco Desiderio. Marco.
Hello.
Happy to have you here.
Hello. Thanks.
Marco, let's begin as we have in previous sessions of this series with your childhood, your early years, which are so formative, in our life of faith. Tell me about your growing up, your family life, and what role faith and prayer and church may have played as you grew in your family.
Sure. That's interesting. I mean, obviously, like growing up, faith was important. It was, my parents, my family made it and showed us as children that it was important because obviously we were going to church on Sunday, we were brought through the sacraments and whatnot. And so, so growing up, this is just kind of what we knew, this was the routine. It was and so, so growing up in a family, I had two older brothers, a younger sister, and I remember we used to, I grew up in this town, and OLA was our parish, and I remember my mother putting on these like little suit jackets and vests and stuff for us to come to church, and I always get lectured. Hey,
all dressed up.
Yeah, make sure you behave, you know what I mean? And this, and my father was always very important to him that we behaved in church. So the early years of faith, I think that was the biggest thing, is that they, it was important to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore it seemed to be something that they modeled for us. My grandmother, when she came to church with us, she was an immigrant and she didn't speak any English. And we always sat in like the front rows, and she would be there but she didn't understand. She knew what was taking place, obviously, but you could hear her pray. And when she prayed, she just prayed with this charisma, and it was kind of loud, and she was like, grazie Gesù, and it was funny because even sometimes the priest would hear her on the altar, and people around, and so seeing her, was it's like, wow, she's got this something about it, because you're still young. It's like, we believe in God. We're simple, we're like little children,
Right.
So
you had that family faith.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the oxygen we breathe. You lived that in your young years. Were there any particular rituals, like in your household,
Sure.
that are memorable for you?
Yeah, obviously, so for us, as a family, we would pray before meals. I remember that being important, and then would take turns, what brother, what simply would say the prayer. And then being in church too was just kind of going back to that, was is I would see a lot of other young kids that like I was in school with, also in church, and ended up becoming an altar boy, being an altar server for a long time. And it was pretty cool. But so it just, these rituals and things we did just seemed normal. You know what I mean?
It's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what
Absolutely.
you do.
But you also had role models. You're talking about
Yes.
your parents, your mother and father, and your grandmother too.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think we underestimate the people who model for us what it means to be a faith-filled person, to rely on prayer, trust in God, the support of the church's ministry. Sometimes we take that for granted, but it sounds like that was very much part of your growing up.
It was. So, when I think of the journey of faith, they say the longest journey is from the head to the heart, and so it was like, I at a very young age, yes, I did believe in God. I knew, there was no question there, but how personal was this relationship, you know? I remember being young, must have been on vacation or something, we were at the beach. My father, for the first time, started to share about how he was born. And he was born actually during wartime, during World War II. So his town was actually being bombed. There's a bombardment. And the story of his birth really has an impact on my life and my family, because it is a story of faith. And this story's been told and retold so often throughout the years, you know. So you just think of what's happening now in Ukraine and these families, and you know, they're saying they're bombing. You hear these stories, and so my father's story was he was born in a cave. They were hiding from the bombardment, and he was given, you know, she gave birth there. But before that, you know, obviously my grandmother's pregnant, and she's due any day. And the German soldiers had gone around in the town, and they had collected all of the people from the different farmhouses, and they put them into one house. And this was his grandfather's house, actually. And so all the people were there in this house, and my grandmother was there. But this soldier had compassion for my grandmother, and he saw that she was pregnant, so he kicks her out. But she doesn't understand anything he's saying, and she's, you know, she leaves, and she's got 3 children, and she's pregnant. And he goes on to another farmhouse to get more people. And when she sees that, she turns around and she goes back into the house, but she hides. And she hides like under the staircase, and the soldier comes back, and for some reason my uncle Camilo, he starts to cry, but like uncontrollably, like. And my grandmother to this day says, like, he never cried, and he never in his life cried like this. And so the soldier discovers her, and he's so enraged, and he's so angry at her, he's kicking her, he throws her outside. At that time, it's wet, it's raining, it's winter time, and she's just devastated. She's got 3 kids, you know, and she's walking away. And as she says at she had consecrated herself to Our Lady. She said, "You are the Mother of God. I give my life to you. You are the Mother of Jesus. Help me, take care of me." The soldier blows up the house with everyone in it, including my great-grandparents, my father's grandparents, and they all die. And my grandmother sees this from a distance. So growing up with that story, you hear this story of faith, this witness, this model, you know? And you're like, wow. So obviously, you know, like for me, you know, as I grow up in life, you know, it was time for me to have my journey, my experience, and how my personal faith experience, like that was for her. And so in some ways, my life is a miracle. My father's life, you know, is a miracle. And so again, you know, just that it just changes the way you live life, I think.
Very much so. That's a great story about the providence of God and how that has affected you. And I think in the series we've had so far, Marco, it seems that as people move into young adulthood, young adulthood brings with it various decisions that are kind of crossroad decisions. You can go in different directions.
Yes.
How was that for you as you moved into the early years of young adulthood? How did faith play a role at that point?
You know, one of my favorite quotes, I'm a big Tony Robbins fan, and he said, you know, it's in our moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. Right. And I think about, you know, how important when you look at that, you're at these crossroads, and I've had a lot of crossroads in my life, obviously. You know,
Yes.
And so, like, you start to experience this at a young age, and then but like at that crossroads, do we turn to God and do we pray? In these moments of decision. Because when I look at my life and I look at the decisions I made when I didn't pray, and versus the times at those crossroads where I did pray and God was part of that decision, life is very different.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
so you notice the difference between when you actually pray and call on the Holy Spirit's assistance in making a decision, as opposed to when you don't do that for one reason or another.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's something, as simple as, when I was, Linfield always had a very active, when I was young, the youth ministry, and there was always a youth minister. And I remember my uncle actually at one point was the youth minister, and he was the cool uncle, so it kind of validated that. And then when I came of age, they hired a woman. Her name was Kathy Manning, and Kathy was just this incredible person, so kind and so loving. And she invited me to kind of come in to the youth group after mass. She said, "Oh, you should come in," and blah blah blah. And that again. That meeting of that person inviting me changed my life as much as it would be like, going to mass this Sunday, somebody invites you or you meet someone and now your life has changed just like that.
Right.
And so she said, "I would like to meet you. I'd like you to come to this youth group." And I'm like, "What?" It was just, okay, I got nothing else to do, whatever. And my mother kept there, "Oh, you should do it, you should do it." And she's encouraging me, and I'm like, you're a busy teenager, you're busy. And I ended up going. And I think I was in middle school, maybe. I think I was in junior high at the time. But that encounter led to the next encounter of meeting Patrick Sears. And Pat Sears was this man that has changed my life profoundly, because once in this youth ministry program, she invited me to attend this Christian Leadership Institute the diocese was doing. I know you know what I'm talking about. So it was in Singing Hills, so I remember, so I'm like, okay, again, I said yes.
Right.
And all my friends are doing this, and I'm gonna go spend a weekend a week I think it was, I forget. Anyway, so I get a phone call from this random guy in the morning, wakes me up, and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "I'm Pat," and I'm literally just waking up out of bed, and he's like, "Are you ready to have the best weekend of your life? It's gonna be incredible." I'm like, "Wait, who are you? Wait, what?" I'm like, "Why are you calling me?" Just again. And I didn't know. I was young. I mean, I was going into 9th grade, and all of a sudden I'm meeting this guy that just has tremendous faith, and he's given up a 6-figure salary to this career where you can make a ton of money, but is choosing to be with young people and help them
Sure.
experience the love of Jesus. And so saying yes to that week and meeting him was profound, because then here's this guy who for the first prayed with me. It was weird. I'll never forget at the end of the week, he held my hands and he prayed with me, and nobody ever did that.
Right. Right.
And then he goes on and he starts a ministry called New Spirit, and it's OLA was one of the first parishes to welcome New Spirit, and they were doing retreats here, and then so the friendship with Pat and his witness of faith and just him modeling. He was never a teacher, but he just lived in a way, and it was so simple that you just it changed you as a person being around him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Another model for you. We started off with your parents and grandmother, and now
I mean,
some more people who really influence your faith life.
Yeah, they're courageous people. They're people that weren't afraid.
So Marco, your early involvement there as a middle schooler or in your teenage years certainly had an influence on you, because you wound up, being a leader in youth ministry, and one of the more effective leaders, I would say, that I have known over the years. You were at St. Pat's in Stoneham.
I was, yeah.
So tell us about that. And again, now you were, earlier on the receiving end of witnesses and leadership in your family and at OLA, with the youth ministry. Now you yourself are a leader. So how did that influence your faith life, and what did you try to do, with the young people that you were involved with there?
Yeah, wow, that's a big one. So I never believed or never thought that I would be in youth ministry, even though I was in youth ministry, as when I was young. Again, at that crossroads, because after, again, growing in my Catholic faith and going to college and almost becoming a Buddhist, and then in some ways, you know what I mean?
It's another feature of young adulthood. In college, you may explore, let me put it that way, right?
I don't know if I'm Catholic anymore. I think I'm going to be Buddhist, But it's incredible how God works in our lives. And anyway, so my faith, obviously, it's waves. You know what I mean? There's ups and downs and ups and downs. But I got to talk about, to get into youth ministry, the real crossroad that I was in, and what really changed me, because it was at the time that John Paul II had died.
Okay.
This is the time. I had a painting business after college. I just, whatever path I was on, it just kind of didn't work out. So I was making money as a painter, and I found myself living the life that I never believed in when I was young. When you're young, you have these dreams and these aspirations. You're like, oh, I want to make a difference. I want to change the world. I want to, how hopeful, and want to be part of a cause.
Idealistic.
And all of a sudden, I found myself working one day, and I was alone, and I said, what am I doing? And I feel like, God just put that in my heart. Like, what are you doing? And I remember just choosing this path of where I was just so self-centered. It was all about me. Going out, chasing girls, success was determined by materialistic things, and I wanted my life to change, and I really began to pray. And now I thought that my career, maybe I was this painting business that was making me unhappy. So I thought changing careers would be the answer. You see how we get mixed up? Didn't pray about it, made a decision thinking that it's my career that's making me unhappy. And so how many times in our world, everyone's focusing on a career because, that's our, I want to be happy. So I followed the family business. I became a barber, got my barber's license. Now I think I'm in my 20s. And I'm working in a barber shop, standing on my feet 13 hours a day. And I'm like, whoa, this is not what I had imagined,
Right.
The point is, I wanted my life to change, and my prayer was, Jesus, I will do anything you want me to do as long as I know it's from you. Change my life. And that was my prayer. And going back to, Pat Sears started New Spirit, and he started with a guy named Barry Kingston. And I remember hanging out with Barry one time, and him telling me in a group of others, hey, you know, if you want your life to change, pray a rosary every day for 1 month. He's like, your life will change. And I for some reason I remembered that. And I started to do that. And I always have bad ADD. I could never really get through a whole rosary. So I started like praying like a decade on the way to the gym, a decade, you know, home from the gym, a decade before bed, you know, splitting it up so I could get through it.
Yes.
And Pat Sears taught me prayer of the heart, you know, and he taught, you know, don't worry about reciting and reading prayers, and pray from your heart. Talk to Jesus. Be vulnerable. Peeling back the layers, you know. And so I did. I just talked to him in my car. Just pour my heart out. Please, Jesus, like, you know, I'm living this life I never believed in. And so it was the moment. So John Paul II died. I'm in the barbershop, and the news is on. And it's a Saturday, I believe. And everyone's, you know, it's a real busy day. And I'm working on a client. And a guy comes in and he's like, enough already, turn this shit off. You know, the TV, because we kept it on, the news. Enough, he's dead already. You know, this guy makes a comment and it starts this buzz in the barbershop, and everybody starts kind of going at it. And I start to shake because like they're talking really bad about this man of peace, you know what I mean? Obviously, there are a lot of don't know what they're saying. And I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and I ask, like, and I say, who am I? And I hear, as those words come out of my mouth, who am I? Jesus, in the same breath as those words are coming out, says, who do you say that I am? And it was the most profound moment for me because it was the moment of my conversion. Who do you say that I am? I'm standing amongst all these people. I've grown up. I'm a Catholic. You know, this is what I thought. I had no idea what it was to live the Catholic faith. I thought I was a Catholic. I went to church. Again, going through all that. I was part of youth ministry. I did this, I did that. But now he's asking me, who are you? Who do you say that I am? And I'm shaking, and I'm so upset. The only thing I can think of is I turned to my boss and I said, if another person in this shop says another bad thing, I'm walking out of here. And obviously, we made him mad. We made the holy guy mad. Whatever, they're picking on me. Whatever. I walk outside, and the bells are ringing for every year that he was Pope.
Oh, wow.
And I am at a crossroads, Franklin Street and Main Street. I'm standing at the light. Cars are going this way and this way. And I'm listening to the bells. They're ringing across the world. How many years he was Pope. And it was just a powerful moment. I call my friend Barry, and I say, hey, Barry. And he starts telling me about camp, this New Spirit Week, this retreat week that we're going to have. And he tells me the theme. And he says, it's fishers of men. And so, anyway, that was just led me, that week was, was another crossroads because.
Another one. Yeah.
So now I'm praying the rosary every day. And God is simply just removing all of these commitments in my life. My girlfriend, my job, my painting business, filed the taxes final. All of these things are just all of a sudden I have nothing. It's as if I could get on an airplane, fly to another country, and I had nothing keeping me here. No attachments, no bills to pay, nothing. It was really weird because. So this place of I knew something was going to happen because, again, I'm praying this prayer repeatedly. Lord, I'll do anything you want as long as I know it's from you. Just let me know with certainty. That's what I was praying. I was asking. And he did. So I had a four-wheeler at the time. It was an all-terrain vehicle. And on Sundays, instead of going to church, I was going four-wheeling in the wilderness in New Hampshire. Yeah. And I decided I was going to sell that. And so I put it in back then, the want ad. And I forgot, I left this piece out. I had asked a friend, priest friend, about this mission, like if he knew any groups like called, where I had this desire to do mission, to serve the poor or something. And I was staying up till 2 a.m, like Googling the Peace Corps. So I knew something in me was changing, and I wanted to do something different, something radical with my life. I don't know.
Right.
But I don't know where it was coming from. But again, I settled for a life that I never believed in, and now I was just looking for a new standard. And so I get an email from my priest friend, and he tells me about this school called the Emmanuel School of Mission in Rome. And I Google it, and I go on the website, and the cost of the school is $5,550 to attend. And I told you I put that four-wheeler in the want ads. And the guy, it was a Saturday, he came and he bought it for $5,000. I sold it to him. I got paid at from the barbershop, and after I added up my tips, it was $550. So I was holding in my hand cash, $5,550, and I'm looking at the computer screen at the cost of the tuition to attend this missionary school. It was $5,550.
Match made in heaven, right?
Dude, so, obviously, he couldn't have been any more clear.
Right.
And then when I go to New Spirit Week, Barry's like, hey, I'm going to go to Rome to visit Father Rick, who's a priest friend of ours, and I want you to come. And I'm like, again, Barry, I know if I say yes to you, my life is going to change. I was terrified.
Right.
And it did. I ended up going to Rome and never came home.
Wow. That's an amazing story, but none of that, of course, is coincidence. This is all God's providence, His plan unfolding for you in your life.
Yeah.
And you wound up, after, I'm sure, many hours of prayer and preparation there, you wound up going to St. Pat's in Stoneham.
Yeah.
And establishing a very, very vibrant youth ministry there. How did that affect your faith, Marco?
So that journey, that year in Rome formed my heart. I actually got to spend time with Jesus in a profound, intimate way.
Absolutely.
All year. Yeah. 365, every single day we spent over an hour in silent adoration before the Blessed Sacrament. Every day of the year we had Mass. We were learning about our Catholic faith, but we're also learning how to talk to others about our faith, and we were evangelizing on the streets of Rome.
Right.
Oh yeah, so we'd be in St. Peter's Square, and they don't allow people to do that, but since the school was part of the, it fell under the Holy See, we were allowed actually to talk with pilgrims that came to Rome. So we were learning how to speak the faith. So my heart was on fire, and that journey was very difficult because it was a year of formation, and I was I was still in that self-centered place, and so I had a lot of growing to do. And so coming home, then what was the next step? So again, you give, it's a journey. So I'm praying, I'm saying, Lord, change my life. Okay, I think He takes everything from me. No, He gives me everything. I'm in Rome. I'm living with people from all over the world. And I'm having this extraordinary experience of life. And so how could I come home? What would I do? So all I knew, and this is my prayer, I asked Him, I said, Lord, when I go home, please just don't take this from me. And this was adoration. It's the first time I ever knew about adoration, actually. I didn't really experience it before until that year. And so I said, just let me have this when I go home. And so when Father Schmidt, he's a character, he knew that some people that I knew were coming to Rome, and he sent them to connect with me and tell me that he wants to talk to me when I come home. So I'm like, what? And then another priest, Father Tony Corcoran, he comes to Rome, and he says, Father Schmidt, he's a really good guy. You should really talk to him. And then sure enough, when I come home, what parish has adoration all day long? Was St. Patrick's in Stone. And so that was kind of like the light, the beaming light, the lighthouse, Okay. And so I guess that's how I ended up at St. Pat's. And the ministry, again, I didn't, he asked me, I wasn't doing anything, I didn't have a job. Okay. So I was like, sure. And so we started a ministry, and I had learned so much from the work I did with New Spirit and running the camps and doing retreats. So I knew how to connect with teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
And it was very important that it was a voluntary thing, so nobody was being forced to be there. So I was just inviting people to come, and part of it was really just setting a new standard, and I knew that young people didn't want what was easy; they wanted what was difficult, and
right.
And so they, so setting it up for adoration, giving them these opportunities to pray, and I describe it as like it's just, it's nothing that I did. All I did was set the table and then invite them.
It's a good image for ministry in general, I would say, Marco.
That's
yeah,
right.
Very much.
So you judge a tree by its fruits. We have Paul Bourne. He's going to be ordained soon. Father Michael Rohra was in the youth group. He's an ordained priest. Deacon Ed Giordano. Father Rentacci was going to do it.
Yes.
Because we had a 5:30. They had a 5:30 mass, daily mass. Ren was able to leave work and go to mass every day, nurture his faith, have that prayer life, and now he's an ordained priest. He was active in the ministry with us. So there's so many beautiful things that came from that. It was the greatest joy for me was to just be a bystander and watch the conversion of others.
Isn't that great? It's one of the things I've enjoyed so much in priesthood, Marco, just to support what you just said. I think watching young people grow, not only physically and in maturity, but certainly in their spiritual life. And you have a remarkable track record, which you just cited, of out of that youth ministry, all these vocations, to the priesthood, and I'm sure to married life as well.
We had 2 holy marriages from that, yeah.
I mean, it's I think there's the fruit of the labor we try to do in the church.
And this is the thing. It's like, it's labor, but it's, when you really look at it, it's like, okay, I'm going to invite you. I'm going to create create an environment for you to come into, and then be able to pray. Give you an opportunity, get you from here to there. It's kind of like all the time we want to serve like the tomahawk steak, for example, right?
Right.
You invite me to dinner, and you're like, we're going to have tomahawk steak, and so you cook up this massive, delicious steak, right? And I'm like, all right, fine. But it's like, I sit down at the table, and there's no fork and knife. How do I eat it? You know what I mean? And so this is the thing. You've got to start somewhere. You know what I mean?
I love that. That's a great
and
image.
So
very good.
And so that's what we did. It was nothing that I did. It was really just, if you listen to Father Michael Rohra when he said, he's like, someone gave him these rosary beads, He was invited to Peru. He did missions in Peru. He just had a chance to pray, to get rid of all the distractions in life. And
I just think your focus on prayer and how prayer has been so instrumental, especially in what we've called those crossroad moments, and not only praying but being responsive, to the prayer and to the answer we receive from God, in our hearts, our minds.
Yeah.
I have two more questions I want to ask you.
Sure.
First is, now
Mm-hmm.
you're a married man, you have children, that invariably, changes your life in general, and perhaps your faith as well. So now in the vocation of marriage and being a father, how has that had an influence, Marco, on your faith?
Mm-hmm.
What do you try to do to fulfill your responsibilities in the faith area?
Yeah. Boom. Well, okay, so you think about the crossroads that we were at. I could have chosen to give my life. I was discerning. I had such love for God, and I was at a crossroad. Do I give my life to Jesus in the priesthood? Or do I give my life to this woman? And so I was at a crossroads, and I chose. And he said, choose. It was discerning this vocation, but that's how much he loves, and I chose marriage, and obviously the disillusionment of marriage. You go in and you're disillusioned. You have this, it's going to be this. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be, and so coming out of that, when you look at the cycles of marriage, of disillusionment, of misery, of joy. How is so the question is how is it my faith been impacted? So I met my wife while I was actually doing ministry, and I can see how, a relationship when you're in ministry, how it affects, everything. It has an impact on your life. And so, and it was beautiful. She ended up having a conversion herself.
Great.
And she ended up, coming back to the church, and it was incredible. It was a beautiful, beautiful testimony, beautiful story, and she became very active in ministry also. And so, I guess, I don't know how to describe, there came a time where I entered into this part of my faith journey, like the gospel passage of Peter, and they're in the boat, and there's a storm, and they're terrified, they're afraid, and they see what's coming to them across the water. There's a ghost, and Jesus is coming to them.
Sure.
And he calls out, and he says, "Hey," and Peter's like, "Well, if it's really you, ask me to get out of the boat, and I'll come to you." And he does, and his eyes are on the Lord, and he's walking to him, but the storm all around him, he gets scared, and he starts to sink, and then Jesus reaches his arm down and pulls him up.
As soon as Peter takes his eyes off of Jesus,
Yes.
that's when the trouble starts.
This is my life.
Okay.
This has been, and I can't believe that I'm in this part of the gospel for so long, because it's constantly the chaos of life, the chaos of work, and family and marriage, and so many elements that it's a constant back and forth. I'm reaching out for him, bruised, beaten, fighting for him, and he's reaching out for me, pulling me up, fighting for me. And I just can't, like, here it is. I thought, like, oh, I'm thinking that my faith is dwindling, but really, no, man. I'm like, got so interlocked with the Lord because I'm fighting so much for him.
Right.
At the same time, he's fighting for me.
He sure is.
And we're so united like that. So I'll put my head on my pillow at night sometimes and realize I didn't pray. And my prayer is like, Lord, save me. Please save me. Come and get me. Like, please come, like, pull me up. Because I realize how much I need his help.
Of course.
You know?
And final question, Marco, and if you could just speak to the viewers. I always am interested, what helps your faith grow? Faith is a dynamic gift that God gives us. It's a living gift. And so it can either grow and flourish and blossom, or it can recede and wither and even die.
Yes.
So what briefly, Marco, helps you and helps your faith to grow?
My faith has grown so much through people and others. In addition to that, it's prayer from the heart and not being afraid. So talking to Jesus and being totally open, vulnerable, not holding back. So how does your faith grow? It's being totally real.
Being authentic.
Yes.
Before God.
It's like, are you kidding me?
Others,
Like, he sees us in truth. He sees beyond all our faults. He knows my faults. He knows what I'm doing wrong. But he doesn't focus on that. When he looks at me, he sees me in truth. And so I know I'm screwing up. And yet I know that he loves me and he's fighting for me. So to know that is it's such a gift to be loved.
It sustains you.
Yeah.
Through thick and thin.
So anyone, I guess, to encourage anyone, like, so in growing in faith is putting away the script and entering into a dialogue with Jesus, asking questions and being persistent.
Yes.
Not, that like a person, we're talking here, you're asking me a question and I'm sharing with you and you're asking, and why are we going to be guarded when we go before the Lord?
I think the things that I've heard from you that are so helpful for everyone, first of all, learn from your mentors, your role models, be open to their influence, their input.
Because God puts them there.
God puts them there.
It's not a coincidence,
And also pray before you make your decisions. And prayer of the heart.
Prayer of the heart.
Prayer is certainly, it's beautiful, the traditional prayers we have, but don't forget the prayer from the heart, because that's where maybe we're most authentic.
Yes.
When we're speaking from the heart in our need and our anxiety.
And even, you think of Our Lady of Medjugorje, when she's teaching the children to pray, she says, pray with the heart. And so when I reflected on praying the rosary, that time, the first time I prayed the rosary every day for a month, and I said I would split it up, a decade. It really was from the heart, because I prayed it despite how I was feeling. You know what I mean? I committed to it to get through it. By the end of the day, I completed this rosary. It was with my heart, because I did it even when I didn't feel like it. Because if you wait till you feel like praying, you're never going to pray.
Marco, thank you so much. It's really, we could go on and on.
We could. I can't believe this.
So Marco, you're a joy to be with. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And
I'm humbled to be here, and it really means a lot. Thanks.
Wonderful.
Really.
Thank you, Marco. And join us for the next episode of Journeys of Faith.